Welcome to the first ever episode of Rabe Creations podcast. My name is Nicole, and I am coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, here in Canada, where winter is still in full swing for us. Get a little jealous watching some of the other podcasters out there talking about, spring on its way and flowers coming up, because we're still months out from that. There are still 2 feet of snow in my front yard. But it is getting better. Walking the dog this morning, it was only about -5, so I had to wear a hat but no mittens, so definitely steps in the right direction. As I said, I do live in Calgary, Alberta, here in Canada, with my husband, my son, and my lovely Rottweiler named Grace. My craft of choice at this point tends to be crochet. I am also a sewist, and I probably have done all the other crafts as well. I am a crafter at heart, but right now my focus does seem to be crochet and sewing. So those are the things I would like to share with you. Be prepared. I am also a bookseller, so there will be book recommendations all the time. If I'm not crocheting, I'm sewing, and if I'm not sewing, I'm reading. Those are the things I do. So be prepared. Those are the things I plan to share with you. As it turns out, we can jump right into it. I do have a cardigan on that I will show you. What am I wearing? This is my Millie cardigan. It came from the book Vintage Crochet by Susan Cropper of Loop in London. So that infamous or famous yarn shop in London. I bought this book a few years ago and actually held off making anything in it. It was a little intimidating. I was just starting to get back into crochet at that point, but I fell in love with this sweater. Beautiful pink color, some great detailing with the ribbon, which gives it that sort of shabby chic vintage look that I just love. The reason why I'm glad I held off is there are definitely some problems with this pattern. There are some mistakes, we'll call it, in the pattern. And being a little more experienced now than I was when I first bought the book, I was able to sort of work my way around those mistakes and still make it work out. So here's the cardigan as it stands. It does come down to just below my hip. Got the great detailing up with the ribbon. Will let you know I'm not thrilled with the ribbon detailing. I thought I would love it, but the fraying is driving me a little crazy. I think I may get some vintage ribbon, some vintage lace ribbon, and put that through there instead. I think it'll still give it that shabby chic look that I love, without all the fraying, which is driving me crazy. I did have to add about 1 inch of a border around the bottom to make it just a little bit longer, and across the front. I definitely need front coverage, so I do tend to add little bits here and there to just make me more comfortable with front coverage. The yarn I used was James C. Brett's Rustic Aran Tweed. I've never used this before. I got it at Gina Brown's, my local yarn shop. And I was quite impressed with it. It is 20% wool, 77% acrylic, and 3% viscose. It is machine washable, which is fantastic. And for 400 grams, this ball was huge. It was about the size of my head. And in that 400 grams, there were 760 yards or 695 meters. So a ton within those balls. This is what I have left of 2 balls. So it did use up almost all the yarn, which is fantastic because I can only make so many scrap blankets out of the ends and bits and pieces of yarn. So this one didn't leave too much at all. The yarn was easy to work with. I do recommend it. It is not 100% wool, but it's nice, it's soft, it's squishy. A little bit of tooth to it, so to speak, but not too bad at all. Let's move on to the next topic of conversation, shall we? So the next thing I thought that we could talk about today were things that I have finished objects. There are a few. I'm trying not to go back too far. As I said, I'd like to do this, I don't know if I said it or not. I'd like to put out a podcast episode about once every 2 weeks. That'll give me time to sort of collect together a variety of finished objects and have some works in progress that I think you might find interesting. So from the past 2 weeks, let me show you besides my Millie cardigan, which I've already pointed out, other things that have come off my hook or out of the sewing machine as well. I do have a finished sewed object as well. So first of all, can start with a little beanie, or a toque as they're known here in Canada. Now I know, as I said, a lot of people are well prepared for spring and are starting to make those spring things. We're still living with snow, so, you know, it's not inappropriate for me to make a toque at this time of year. The quick pattern for this, it only took me about an hour to get this from start to finish. The pattern that I used came from the Inside Crochet magazine, issue number 95. I am a bit of a magazine junkie, I admit it. Working at a bookstore that carries magazines is an enabler, so to speak. So yes, I do buy my crochet magazines every month. But it is the Clyde hat by Rianne Drinkwater. There it is there. As you can see in the picture, or maybe you can't, it is just a hat. I took the liberty of adding in the pom-pom detail. I love these loopy pom-poms much better than the fluffy traditional pom-pom, because this is made of 100% acrylic, and I use it for, you know, going out walking the dog. I need it to be something that can be machine washed, and the traditional floofy pom-poms, as you probably well know, do not survive very well with multiple washings. So these loopy pom-poms are a savior for me. I love pom-pom hats. And this really, really works for me. It gives me that pom-pom hat without having to worry quite so much when it comes to laundering. Does have a little bit of a rim detail that I tend to fold up. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. Quick project. On the sewing front, I have to tell you that it was my birthday a couple of days ago, and my darling husband, also an enabler, bought me a brand new sewing machine, so I am thrilled. My old sewing machine, I'd had it for over 30 years. It did straight, it did zigzag, that was it. This machine has 99 different stitches. I'll see if I can't insert a photo of the machine, because it is not in this room. It's downstairs. But as soon as I got it, I broke out a pattern, and it is actually the bee blouse. Again, from Simply Sewing magazine this time. I told you I love my magazines. This was a free pattern that came, I believe it was issue 39 of the Simply Sewing magazine. And this pattern came with it as a free pattern. And then I went to the fabric store and I found the most amazing fabric. It is so cute. Let me show you the finished blouse, because yes, it is finished. And here it is. I'm going to cover my face. So as you can see, I did the bee blouse in bee fabric. Silly, yes, I love this fabric. Oh my goodness. It is just a quilting cotton, which is probably not the most ideal fabric to do a blouse out of, but I loved it. I could not resist. It does have a tie detail in the front, which is kind of nice. Short sleeves, it did have two sleeve options, sleeve length options, but I was happy with the short sleeve, and it's fairly cropped. I tend to like to do cropped sweaters, cropped shirts, because I'm very short through my torso, so unless I want something to look oversized, a traditional length of a garment on the top will always look too long for me. It'll always look like it's an extra long piece. Cropped tends to fit me where traditional lengths fit other people. So cropped is the way for me to go. I love this blouse. It is going to become a staple in my wardrobe. So that's it, really, for finished objects, but I do have a work in progress that I would like to show you as well. So, living here in this most amazing little project bag. It's by Crafty Ocelot. She has a Etsy shop, and I love it. It is just so me. It's got, you know, witches and skulls and spiders and crows. Yeah, love this little bag. So living in my little bag is a half-finished object. I have a sock. I love crochet socks. I do not knit. I have tried. It doesn't work. But I love crochet, and I love crochet socks. So this is one of two. It is a pattern that has come out of Step Into Crochet, a Ron Strong publication. I've done quite a few socks out of this book now. And again, this past little while, it has been the time for me of the scary patterns, the patterns that aren't quite written properly, and this sock pattern sort of followed the trend of the Millie sweater. So it is called the Mordecai sock, and I love them. They've got some cabling detailing up top, a nice basic sock along the bottom. There are mistakes as well in this pattern. There's mistakes in the heel, there's mistakes in the toe, big mistakes. But again, I've done enough socks now that I'm sort of able to work my way around some of those mistakes, and I'm really, really pleased with the finished object. So the wool the yarn that I have used for the blue portion is actually from Little Bean Loves. I found out about Little Bean Loves yarn through watching podcasts. I believe it was Crochet Cakes, Closerbeth, who sort of pointed me in the direction of this yarn, and I love it. Oh, the depth of color. Oh, I just can't even. It's blues, some purples, some grays. It's just gorgeous. Yeah, I'm in love with this yarn. The toe, because I can't do socks with toes that are the same color. I must always have contrasting toes. Usually heels as well, but the heel in this sock didn't lend itself well to having a contrasting color. The toe is done from a mini that I purchased from the Wool Baron, I believe. She is a local dyer, well, fairly local, next little town over to us. And it was just an unnamed colored mini. I bought a whole bunch of them to do my toes, my heels, that sort of thing. But yeah, totally happy with how this turned out. So I have the beginning of sock number 2. No second sock syndrome here. I do have a little tiny stitch keeper on there. Now Divination, if you didn't know, is a Harry Potter colorway, because I too, like a lot of you, are a Potter fan. We'll just leave it at that. So it seemed appropriate that the stitch marker I used on it was the symbol from the Deathly Hallows. Now you're probably not going to be able to see the detailing on that, but I'm going to insert a picture for you because I love this. The stitch marker came from a shop, again on Etsy. I do a lot of late night ordering on Etsy, called Crochet One Knit Two, another Canadian Etsy shop. Beautiful, beautiful product and super fast shipping. But I loved this little stitch keeper. Now I have been sorted into the Ravenclaw house, so it of course had to have the blue detailing. But yeah, so that's sock number 2. Hopefully it'll be off the hook for the next podcast, and it will be a completed object for the next podcast. And on to the next segment. Alright, so moving into my next segment, I'd like to call this segment New Additions. This isn't something that I find difficult to acquire. As I said previously, I do a lot of Etsy shopping, a lot of, shall we call it late night, buy this now shopping, but it is my vice. So let's get right into it, starting out with some yarn acquisitions. So first off, back to Little Bean Loves. So this is the same dyer that dyed the yarn that I'm using for my socks. I fell in love with this colorway. So this was the colorway that Little Bean Loves did for Valentine's Day this year. It's called Queen of Hearts, and it is absolutely spectacular. It is on the Everyday Sock base, which is a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. So it's a fantastic sock base, nice and squishy, yarny, smelly goodness. Look at those colors. So it's a cream base, and then it's got some pinks and purples, light purples, dark purples. It is just beautiful. Now, right now I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing socks with this, or perhaps looking at a lightweight shawl for spring, because spring will eventually come even here in Calgary. But yeah, just love this colorway. Love this dyer. If you have the opportunity, go check her out. Fantastic product, fantastic service, and that's Little Bean Loves on Etsy. So definitely check her out. I also got this amazingness. So this is a sparkle sock base from Fiber Art Studio. Now, Fiber Art Studio is a Canadian dyer out of Vancouver, BC, so next province over. I love this. Nice dark blue color with a fantastic sparkle. I don't know if you're going to be able to see the sparkle. A lot of times sparkle doesn't show up on camera, but fantastic amount of sparkle in this. So it's 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina. Absolutely amazing. Again, the customer service is fantastic. An Etsy order, so they are on Etsy. Give them a visit. Check out their product. Fantastic, beautiful color. And once again, I really don't know what I'm going to make with these. I rarely know what I'm going to make with the yarn that I order until after I get it. So I'm just waiting for that project to speak to me. But so love this yarn. The sparkly goodness of it all. Oh, I tell you. So on the sewing front, I did make another little bit of a purchase, and I have to tell you a little bit of a backstory on this one. I watch a lot of podcasts. One of my favorite podcasters is Katie from Inside Number 23. It is a knitting podcast, but hey, that's okay. It's all about the yarny goodness. She's also an amazing sewist. I have watched her entire back catalog, and it's fairly extensive. Now, when I was in the fabric store, I happened to stumble across some fabric, and I gasped. Yes, I gasped, because it's the same fabric that Katie used to make her Halloween dress 2 Halloweens ago. I believe it was 2016 when she made this dress. So I admit I had a bit of a fangirl moment and had to purchase the fabric. Here it is in all its glory. Oh my goodness. It's super cute. Has some fantastic cute characters on it. We've got witches, we've got a vampire girl here, and her looks like her vampire younger brother, a ghoulish type baby. There's a young girl who is walking a werewolf on here somewhere. This is just amazing. And as I said, I had a fangirl moment. I had to purchase it. I'm pretty sure I don't have enough to do a dress like Katie did. Besides, that would be a little too spooky weird. But I might do a skirt. I might do a skirt, just a nice full basic skirt. Again, it just feels like a basic quilting cotton. So it's going to wrinkle like the dickens, but I don't care. It's gorgeous and it's fun, and I get to have my fangirl moment. So here's to you, KT, even though I know you'll probably never see this, but here's to you. Thank you for the inspiration. And finally, one other late night order on Etsy purchase was from the Crochet One Knit 2 Etsy shop. I did show you the Progress Keeper, the stitch marker that is on my socks, and that came from this shop, as well as 3 other stitch markers. So the first is a little paw print, the second is a skeleton, and the third says keep calm and kill zombies. I'm going to put this closer to the camera. Hopefully it'll focus. If not, I will insert a picture and allow you to see this beautifulness. Love them. And again, she is another Canadian Etsy shop owner, and have nothing but good things to say about the service that I received from that shop as well. So those are my 3 acquisitions for the week, and let's move on to the next segment. All right, so on to the next segment, which will probably be the last segment of my first podcast. Thank you if you've stuck around this long. I would love to see some comments down below. Let me know how you think this is going. Yeah, this is kind of a dream, so thanks for supporting the dream. So, last segment. As I said earlier, I am a bookseller by day, crocheter by night. So I will always have some book recommends for everybody. Reading is a passion of mine. Yeah, so let's get into it, shall we? So, I have been eyeing this series for quite some time. Don't know why I never picked it up, but I finally bit the bullet and picked up the series. It is by an author named Charlene Harris. She is a prolific writer. She does some cozy mysteries. She is, I believe, most famous for the Sookie Stackhouse novels that was made into the series on TV called True Blood. She is a prolific author. Now, she did release a series a little while ago, and as I said, I've been putting off picking it up, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I finally got it. Starts with a book called Midnight Crossroad. So the story actually takes place in Texas, in a town called Midnight. It's a bit of an odd town. Some odd people live in Midnight. Would be a neat place to visit. I read the first book in a couple of nights. It's one of those, all of these books are the type of book where you could sit down and literally read them in a day, if you were on a road trip or whatever. Not terribly challenging reading, but good fluff. Nothing wrong with entertainment reading, and that's what this is. So I read the first book in about, a couple of days of reading before I go to bed. Really enjoyed it. Really interesting characters, really interesting town. So if you sort of like that weirdness in your characters, I recommend this series. I am now about halfway through the second, which is called Day Shift. And as soon as I'm finished that, I can jump right into the third, called, you guessed it, Night Shift. So yes, I'm really enjoying this series, and I do recommend it for anybody who is sort of into that sort of fantasy, magic realism, fluffy, reading for entertainment kind of book. If you like that, I believe you'll like these. Now I think that just about wraps it up for my podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching and sticking with it. I'm not sure at the beginning of the podcast, in fact I'm pretty sure that I didn't tell you where to find me on other social media platforms. So I am active on Instagram, where I am Nicole_Rabe Creations. I am active on Ravelry, where I am just Rabe Creations. I do have Facebook for Rabe Creations. You see a bit of a trend going here. And yes, I too am an Etsy seller, and my shop is called, you guessed it, Rabe Creations. Feel free to visit me on any of those social media platforms. I would love to see you and love to hear from you. And here's to hoping that this goes well and that it becomes a long-term effort. And yeah, thank you so much. This community has done nothing but inspire me over the past couple of years, and I hope to give back a little. So yeah, here's to that. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.